parents, I know that with children, their responsibility is not that great, or it's not that
Kids.
complicated.
That's so true.
It really is not. Children,
That's so true.
really, all they have to do is do what they're told. I know that people
sounds
don't like that.
really narrow there,
but
Eric.
it really is the responsibility of a child is to do what?
That's true, is to obey and to honor their parents.
Thanks for joining the Home Matters Podcast with Eric and Gena Boggs, where they lead authentic, raw discussions about marriage, family life, kids, intimacy, and sex from a biblical perspective. Now here's your host, Eric and Gena Boggs.
Welcome to Home Matters. Man, thank you so much for tuning in. We are so glad you joined us today, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm Gena, and this is Eric. Home Matters. We're talking about
number 73.
Yes.
Podcast number 73.
I think you're right.
Talking about a biggie today.
Yeah, man. Parenting, children.
We talk about
who's leading, who's in charge.
The intro
right?
says there that we talk about parenting, children, kids.
That's
all
it
that.
Today.
Yeah, and when it comes to children, parenting.
Who's leading in home.
Yeah, who's kind of in charge. I think that, when we look at it from the standpoint of our society today, I think it's a little more complicated maybe than it has been in times past.
Why do you think? What's the reason?
I think there are a lot of different opinions out there that have probably influenced people, parents, and how they parent.
Yeah, true. I think some of it probably as well is the state of family.
Yeah.
I mean,
you got a lot more
families.
You got a lot more blended families.
Yeah.
And again, making that the best that it can be.
It's challenging, to navigate.
I always tell
those
couples it's never, when you're raising children and mom and dad are apart, it can never be the ideal. Hard. I mean, it's tough enough, when mom and dad are together.
Yes, it's a job,
kids,
right?
It's a job.
Work.
It's a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
And as parents, I know that with children, their responsibility is not that great, or it's not that complicated.
That's
It
true.
really is not. Children,
that's so true.
Really, all they have to do is do what they're told. I know that people don't like that.
Sounds really narrow there,
but
Eric.
It really is the responsibility of a child is to do what?
That's true, is to obey and to honor their parents. I mean, we probably, if you're listening, you are maybe a people of faith, you're plugged into God's way and his way of doing things. And that's what this podcast is about. Eric's got his Unless the Lord Builds a House Home Matters t-shirt on today. So we believe that God leads us, right?
Sure.
In leading our homes. And if you take the Bible.
It gives us the instruction manual.
Right. If you go through the Bible and you look, honestly, the primary responsibility that children are given is to obey, to listen to Proverbs over and over. Listen to your father, heed the words of your mother. And, I will say along with that, that places a huge responsibility on those of us who fall in the category of parents.
Yeah, it does.
Not a responsibility that we can take lightly.
What you're saying then is that as parents, our responsibility is pretty complicated.
It can be complicated just because of what you said earlier. There's so many.
Maybe I used the wrong word. Maybe the responsibility is much broader.
Yes.
Where a child, as children, again, we're asking, all right, who's really in charge here?
Yeah.
And a lot of times now it looks like, just my own opinion, but it looks like kids are more in charge than parents are.
Kids are in charge in
homes.
Sometimes
Kids sometimes are running the house where mom and dad, you're the one with the weight, the responsibility.
You are the one with the responsibility, right? It is your responsibility.
And it's good news for a child to realize you're not responsible.
It should be good news.
Yeah, it's good news. You're not responsible for, making a lot of the decisions for your house. It's as simple, as silly as that may sound. Again, I think that even though they're not responsible, they're given responsibility.
Parents or kids?
Kids. I think
kids.
they make too many
Okay,
decisions.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
They're having to make decisions that
they should not
making.
be making. Right.
When you think of adolescents and teenagers, how many of them, a lot of the decisions in their life that they're struggling with could be made
by a
by a
parent.
responsible parent.
That's
That's my
true.
point. So again, when it
That's
comes
true.
to, a broader sense of responsibility, yeah, it may not be complicated if we just do what we're supposed to do as parents, right?
Yeah.
But as children, really it's just a responsibility. Come under the covering of mom and dad.
Yes.
And just walk under that kind of like I relate, following the Lord, being Jesus followers. You come under the umbrella of obedience, and when you walk under that covering,
Man,
it protects you in so many different ways. And I think
yes.
the same is true in anything where you come under someone else. If you walk under that covering,
Right.
there's a covering, there's protection,
There's
provision.
a lot of freedom with under that covering. Yeah, I love it. Provision, you said, protection.
Yeah.
All of those things that parents are to be providing for their children as long as they stay under that covering. So simply, kids are called to obey, to honor and obey.
Yep.
And parents are called to enforce the obedience. Make sure that they are doing those things, which
parents are responsible to show or to direct or to lead their children. And again, keep them in a place where the children understand the importance of obeying. Again, you can say it in a lot of different ways. I'm trying to use soft language, I guess. But again, that parents are supposed to.
They are supposed to
lead their children. They are supposed to nurture their children. They're supposed to show them.
That's so true.
You got a passage there that you can read in Ephesians 6. It kind of starts us in that direction, I think, especially when it comes to fathers. What are we to do? What are parents supposed to do?
I pull this passage up and and just kind of preparing for this, man, there are so many, I lost my passage. I got to go back. There's so many verses in the Bible.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I would encourage you as parents, man, get a concordance, Google it out and look at all the passages about parenting, and our responsibility is there. This is, known by most. Ephesians 6:1, New King James says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth." Verse 4, "And you fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and the admonition of the Lord."
Yeah. So again, we're not to be overbearing,
right?
Not overwhelming, but again, we're to bring them up, train them, show them the way, nurture them.
Yeah.
And again, it comes back to children finding obedience at work in their life, and as simple as that is.
And what a foundation when we help establish that obedience in their life. What a foundation for their relationship with God, their interaction with other people.
For life.
Exactly. I was going to say with everybody in
why
life.
Why do parents need to teach their children to be obedient? Because one day they're going to be in a place in a school, or they're going to be in a place at a job that they're going to need to understand
who's in charge.
Their need, to know who's in charge, but to know that they're to line up and be obedient to the people or the persons that are set over them.
Right.
And again, I think that sometimes we miss that. I'm not trying to be a dictator in my home, but again, my children, they have to know that there's a certain place in their life that they come up under my direction, my decisions, my choices that I make for our house. My children had to know that, ultimately, Daddy's the one that's responsible. And
we have to answer, right?
And if I let my children, if I'd allow them, they would drive.
Absolutely.
They'd drive every decision that I make. If I'm not at a place and I understand, God has put me in this place and He shows me.
Right.
Again, it says there, I'm not to provoke my kids. I'm not overbearing. I'm not an iron fist. But
No, but you are leading them in the way of the Lord by
right.
requiring obedience from them.
Yeah.
We are teaching them in the way of the Lord, right?
I should be able to show them how they're to live, to
Yeah.
teach them what's right and wrong.
Mm-hmm. And I think, though, that a lot of times, I'm sorry. Excuse me for bumping the microphone. I think a lot of times that's so hard, though. You know, what parents are tired, parents are overworked, parents are so busy. You know, when we get home in the evening, the last thing we want to have is another confrontation if we've been dealing with confrontations and adults and people. So there are a lot of excuses, I think, you know, that we can kind of hold on to that seem to make a lot of sense right now. You know, we don't want to take time to lead. We don't want to take time to require obedience because, you know, all these reasons that we have. And I think it's easy as parents just to slip into those, no matter how young our children are, you know, all the way down to toddlers or, you know, teenage years, that we just kind of take a day off as a parent.
That, you know, even toddlers, small children, they can work their parents.
Oh, yeah.
And they know. I mean, I've seen I know even with our children, grandchildren, I've seen, you know, small toddlers.
They know how to work it, don't they?
They know how to work
the
room, if you can say it that way. They know how to work their parents and, again, get what they want.
True.
And, again, that's not healthy.
No,
it's not helpful to a family unit. And that's the reason we say, you know, there has to be, the right people have to be the lead. The right people have to be in charge.
Right.
And it's parents. So again, it says that children are to obey. I think you have to ask, you know, the question, you know, why do they need to obey? What's it say there in Ephesians chapter 6? You know,
well, verse 1 is real clear there. It says, because it's right. Okay. Because that is what's right. The Lord requires of us. Right. Obedient. Truth is right. Truth from the Word of God.
But and again, the Word says, what is right is you, as children, that they obey.
Right.
That you obey. Come under authority. That they realize that they are to do what they're told.
Right. And essentially, that's just how the home is supposed to work, right? That's how it's supposed to be. Secondly, verse 2 of the same chapter, it's really a command there from the Lord. And you can go back to the Old Testament and find it as well, right?
Yeah.
Back in Exodus.
Exodus. That's a new book in the Bible.
Exodus. You know, just about honoring father and mother. Again, I referred to Proverbs. There are places over and over again. You know, listen to your father.
It's a command with promise, right? That you can live.
Thank God for the promise.
You know,
man, that opens blessing up in your life.
Very practically, again, you know what the word says there, that you can live long. You know, it's so practical from the standpoint of, you say, well, you know, why do I need to do what mom and daddy say? Because it's for your good.
Yeah.
And again, you know, if I got a teenager that drives their vehicle over the speed limit and they're reckless, then as a parent, I'm going in and we're going to bring some alignment there, right? We're going to bring some correction. Need to take the keys or what? But again, why? Because it'll keep them alive.
That's so true.
I mean, it's as simple as it is. That's how practically applied this verse is. Listen, you live long. Why do I keep my children? Why do I demand that they obey a life or what I've instructed them when it comes to things that are healthy and helpful? And why would I ever expect my children to live outside of that when I know it's going to sustain them? It's going to keep them. I mean, literally, it can keep them alive.
Right. I think it's such a challenge, though, parents, and I hear this all the time, you know, just in trying to give them what they want or allow them to do what they want to do. Yeah. We feel like that just kind of proves our love for them, that we just, We just want them to have what they want. We just want them to be able to do what they want to do, when in actuality, that's so far from the truth. Yeah. It's not love is tough. Love is tough a lot of times. Love makes some hard decisions. Love has some hard conversations. Yeah. It's not always easy. Love is not always just an easy thing. And I think, sometimes as parents, we have to understand that the greatest way that we can possibly ever love is to bring correction in their life, to lead, to guide them, to make those hard decisions for them on the front side.
Yeah, again, as parents, we've come the way. We know the dangers. We've come this way already. There should be an accumulation of knowledge.
Right. Should be, right.
Hopefully an application and wisdom in our life that we can
we can use in leading.
We can pass to our children. Mm-hmm. And again, you say, well, what's the big deal? Why obedience? Well, obedience to the ways that we know work already or that will be helpful. Mm-hmm. Boy, it can go a long way, can't it?
Yeah. And I think so many times today, too, parents just, they don't have the confidence they need. Maybe they know they've messed up. Maybe they know they didn't really come from a background where their childhood was very strong. And so they just kind of, disregard themselves or sell themselves short in the wisdom that they do have. Yeah. But man, whether your situation that you came from, was perfect or not, whether your parents did everything right, man, we have learned something, right?
Yeah, we start where we are.
You do start where you are, but what I'm trying to say is that the experiences that you have had, you draw from those.
Yeah, maybe even in a negative light, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but again,
we know what works, or what didn't work.
As children, the reason, again, we're emphasizing for children, and again, I don't know if you run get your kids to listen to this podcast. That,
they don't want to listen.
The reason we expect obedience is because, again, we can show them, we can lead them, right? Mm-hmm. And it is right. It is a command.
Yeah.
That they live that way. The reality is every child may not have the heart of God. I know that's hard for some of you to imagine in your sweet little kids, but they may not have the heart of God, and they may not even have a heart to do what God says.
That's true.
But as parents, until they get there, let's make sure that we're willing to carry the weight of our children.
Exactly. That's a perfect way to put it, I think, to carry the weight, because it's not an easy job. It is work. It does require something of you so many times when you just don't feel like you got anything else to give.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be just a real fight.
Yeah.
Not just that we're punching, but really it's a fight. It's a fight for their life. It is a fight for their health, for their years.
I think we can kind of stop right here, though, because there are parents out there that maybe you are in the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure.
Feel like you don't know which way is up, and don't know how to parent, or you feel
maybe you've messed it up. As a parent.
Maybe you feel like you're failing, but we just encourage you to turn back and try to discover. What is my responsibility? What am I to try to do with these children? You're supposed to protect them. You're supposed to provide for them.
Right.
Again, to nurture them, to train them, all these different terms that we could use to describe. But again, we understand it's heavy.
Yeah.
But turn back, and again, God gives us instructions. He gives us a manual to how we live life, to how we raise kids, and again, if we'll just do our best.
Man, God does the rest, right?
Do our best and leave the rest. If we'll do our best, it can carry us.
Yeah.
And just encourage you today if you're in that struggle and you feel like you're failing and you feel like, I'm not making progress, don't give up.
That's right, man. Just even if, maybe there were years where you did it wrong.
Yeah.
Man, there's nothing wrong with apologizing to your kids.
Right.
Right. And saying, man, we have it. we haven't done it all right.
Yeah.
But, God help us.
Yeah, repenting to your kids, right?
That's
That's
not
where
an
you
easy thing
change
to
directions.
do, right?
It's not easy. But again, we're just saying if you feel like, and I'll say this, some of you feel like you're not carrying your weight, and you really are.
Yeah.
The enemy has a way of just kind of piling on.
Absolutely.
And our kids can be in a season of their life where it's really tough. And you may feel like, boy, I'm blowing it. But more than likely, you're doing your best.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to follow what you believe is the Word of God, is the truth to your life. And,
that's good, yeah.
You're probably doing better than you think.
Yeah, man. God will enable you. Mm-hmm. Man, thank God for the Holy Spirit. If you're a believer, He lives on the inside of you. And if you'll just turn an ear, man, He will lead and guide you every step of the way, help you make decisions along the way, lead you in wisdom that you don't have in yourself, right? Man.
Yep. Got to close. We're out of time.
Man, I'll tell you what.
Run get your kids on real quick before we finish. And let us just say this again. Children.
Obey your parents.
Obey your parents.
Yeah, for this is right. It's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
Let me close with this one. Colossians 3:20. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord.
Yep.
And
so again, we just encourage you. Parenting, right. James Dobson said it this way: it's not for cowards.
It's
a job.
Yes.
And it is a task. But again, you're going to make it.
That's right.
Just be faithful. What God's called you to kids.
That's right. Man, it's a good thing.
Yep.
Your home matters.
Yep. See you next time.